now is this is nothing to do with myself. This is what our city needs, the second technical university. So when I start searching about this, you know, there is many universities in Turkey at the moment. At least 2-3 universities in a city. In total, about, I think, 250 universities we have in Turkey at the moment. But there is also complaint about universities in Turkey to the government, current government. They said, okay, you open a lot of universities, but they are like apartments, you know, they are empty inside, you know, no good education, people, okay, students going, joining the university, graduating, but they cannot find their place in industry. The industry doesn't like these students graduated from new universities. They're still looking for the students from the old universities like ETÜ, ODTÜ, you know, this university is established more than 100 years. They said, you know, we don't need any universities like this in our city. So, okay, I tried to search international universities. Like I saw Sorbonne University in Paris, in France. They have in branch some other country, I cannot remember. I look Berlin Teknik University, and I saw there is a branch in Egypt. Then I thought, you know, instead of establishing a new university, whatever the name is called, making academic stuff, planning the lectures, and opening and accepting the students, it will take maybe at least 10 to 20 years to establish good reputation to students to choose this university instead of the old ones. I said, why don't we go through this very well-known, like Berlin Teknik University, I know is in world ranking, in the list of 10, I think, is the best technical universities in the world, Berlin Teknik University or Aachen, Zurich, as you know. Why can't we make any cooperation? What kind of cooperation I am thinking is that, okay, we of course have enough budget as this industrial zone people, this is a zone of industries. There is 30,000 employees, 130 factories. As I said, you know, $6.5 billion export made from our city. In this industrial zone, about 30% of it produced here. And this gentleman, this businessman, is very keen on supporting this engineering education. They want to support it. They want to give their money to charity, you know, to support the children and the university and education. So the reason we choose Germany, we contact some other countries also, Germany is very close to us. Our main sector in Turkish main export country is Germany. First, the second, United Kingdom, third is France and some other countries. We have export many products. We have import many automotive industries and chemical products from Germany to Turkey, as you know. So we want to make collaboration, which includes the contents of engineering sciences, because I have also gone through in higher school mechanical studies, and I saw very old machines and very old program. They teach us, you know, maybe 50 years of before mechanical engineers study. It's not up to date. So I suppose in Germany, as we know, Industry 4.0, 5.0, you know, 4.0, okay, and the sustainability is all we talking, carbon-free energy saving production and so on. This is the place where we can talk each other, and okay, if we want to make a new technical university, and if we have their mechanical engineering studies, the department, that the children, the people, the students who will apply will be educated with the same contents as they were students of Berlin Teknik Universities. I want to discuss this idea. Maybe you say is up to date at the moment. What we show here in mechanical engineering, same as 10 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe it's different. Even in the computing, because I used to learn Visual Basic, C++, you know, sound systems, as you know. But now there is many languages used in industry. Digital world comes with the many customer-related products, CRMs, you know, SAPs, and so on. So this is my idea for this visit. We have enough capital to build our university, to build an academic persons, and maybe also in some professors we can make, you know, how do you say, they can come to Turkey and give lectures in once a month or two a month, you know, with all our expenses and salaries and so on. So I want to reason to come to talk about possibilities of how can we cooperate with Berlin Technical University. We are at the beginning because we want to make planning with you before building the university also. Because to build the university, there is regulations. If, for example, labs should be height of 5 meters in Turkey, the doors height and wide, you know, everything is planned. Maybe we can go through in this project. The architectural department of Berlin Teknik University can give us, maybe can offer us this service, which will be, of course, pay for it. So this is our main reason to be here, and thank you for accepting us. I would love to see your university. I hope we will have chance to visit also PTZ. That's it, actually.
Fine. Yeah. Thanks for coming here to Berlin and looking into possible collaborations. From my point of view, collaboration is an essential part in science and in teaching. And in consequence, it's always good to explore possible new collaborations not existing today. And as a Technische Universität, it's from our perspective also always important to have the application, the industrial future life of our students in mind, or of students in general in mind, because especially in the field of engineering, not many do choose an academic career, but most of them do pursue an industrial career, contributing at the very end to create jobs and GDP growth in their respective countries, may it be Germany, may it be Turkey, or wherever. So, and universities, especially universities of technology, are an important part of what we typically call an innovation cycle. What does our university do? We transform money into knowledge by educating people. And what does industry do? It transforms knowledge into money.
Yes.
By transforming inventions made at the university into innovations, innovative services, innovative products, which then find a market and create growth in GDP as mentioned. So this innovation circle is essential, and especially the role of the university, of a technical university is to be an important part in this cycle. So that's our perspective. That's, by the way, one of the reasons we always look for experienced people from industry to become professors at a university. The same is true for Munich, for Aachen. And that is an essential part in the education of engineers in Germany, not only to teach them what is written down in textbooks, but also to bring them close to what the real world of industrial application does look like. Having said this, what does it mean for today's meeting? So first, in the name of our president, Geraldine Rauch, I'm happy to welcome you here. My own background is in chemistry. I do have an engineering chair of energy process engineering and conversion technologies for renewable energies, and I happen to be currently the dean of the Faculty of Process Sciences and the representative of our president for international relations or external affairs and alumni. And so I'm not a good person to talk about mechanical engineering because that's not my original background. Yeah, but you will be visiting the PTZ, the colleague Jörg Krüger, right after this meeting, from my understanding. So that is the person who is deep into mechanical engineering. So I can offer you some more general perspective on this kind of interaction, and the PTZ folks then can dive into some additional aspects. And some topic else I will address in a minute. When establishing a university, the starting point is always the question whether you're looking for bachelor, for master, or for bachelor and master education. Because bachelor education is somewhat tricky if you transfer, for example, teaching method and content from one country to the other, depending on the quality and the type of education the students bring from their school education. That was one of the discussions, by the way, we also had in Egypt, where we looked into the idea having bachelor programs down there, and at the very end we realized that this may not be really feasible without a partner university from the country, and so we did not follow up on this because the way we teach our bachelors depends on the way they have been educated in school. And if the requisites they do bring with them from school differ from what we expect here, then suddenly study programs may not be fitting and things like this. So that's one of the topics. It's a different story when looking into master programs, because typically in the bachelor program, for example, in Germany, most of the bachelor programs are 3-year programs because school education is 13 years, the total from class 1 to the end, while in many other countries you have a 12-year education, and then you need a 4-year bachelor because the first year adjusts somehow education differences between different types of school, and certain things you can teach in 13 years in school need to be taught at university when dealing with a 12-year school system. So that's a bit tricky. One only has to keep this in mind. I don't say it's not manageable, but you have to keep this in mind, and you cannot ignore this. And then at the very end, you have a 2-year master program ending up or completing this Bologna cycle of a total of a 5-year education, resulting in 300 credits, which is a formality, but you have to observe this. So the next question is, when talking about master program, it's also the question, is this a consecutive master, so people do attend a university bachelor program and immediately go to the master program, or do they go to industry first for 2, 3, 4 years and then return to university to receive an additional technical but also economic training, like an MBA with a technical focus. That's doing an MBA with a technical focus is a different study program compared with what a purely engineering education would be. And that is a lively discussion we had with respect to a number of especially lifelong learning programs, because people were not so much interested in purely technical content, but liked more some education, like in a Master of Business Administration. Technical content, but also a strong focus on economic aspects, on leadership, on whatever you need to take the next step after the first 3-4 years in a company. That is also something which needs to be looked into before starting to run. Sometimes it's helpful to look a little bit on the road ahead of you and then to decide what shoes to be put on. Yes. Because a long distance run is different from a sprint, cross country is different from track and fields, and so on. You get the picture.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Interrupt for a minute. We thinking about undergraduation and a master degree education together with the capacity of maximum 6,000 students in total, with 100% English teaching, not in native Turkish language.
So that would be a 6-year program with 4 years
exactly.
of bachelor and 2 years of master.
Yes. I agree with totally 100% about what you say. Because we have to decide. We are mainly focusing in a master degree program, but we have to also give undergraduate education. I know Stanford University in America is mainly focused on master's program and applied sciences and some other contents, but we want to first establish both. Not too many branches of applied science. Maybe, as I said, electronic engineering is computing, big data engineering, or some other things. But we want to have undergraduate 4 years and 2 years a master degree program. Maybe exchange program, 4 years of undergrad, 1 year in Berlin or some other countries. So.
Okay, there's one tricky part one has to keep in mind when setting up such a focused type of a university, because when educating, let's say, mechanical engineers for the time being, you still need some people who are able to teach chemistry, physics, material science, topics like this. So it's not only the purely engineering part, but in the bachelor, at least in the bachelor program, you have to widen this a little bit, because you cannot rely on the education they bring with them from school. You have to have a strong mathematics program, because whatever kind of engineering field you follow in the later part of the study program, mathematics will always play an important role. So you have to have a very strong group of people being able to teach all the relevant mathematics. It's not a mathematics study program, but all the relevant mathematics for the various fields of engineering. With your own background in electrical engineering, you know how much mathematics is involved there. And so one has to be very serious about and very careful about what kind of additional streams of teaching are required to educate the students in the broadest, in the minimal but also needed broadness with respect to fields they need then to perform a very good study program later in bachelor and in master, and to become versatile graduates from the university, which could be applied or which could be made use of in industry later on without too much of additional training for certain fields, because they have to pass this already. We have the interesting situation that there is an ongoing activity in Turkey for TU Berlin, and that is you will see when visiting the PTZ, there is a Turkish-German university which has been established some years ago with a strong participation of TU Berlin.
The dean now changed, I think. Yes.
Yeah, and Jörg Krüger, the gentleman or my colleague you will meet at the PT, is heavily involved in that program.
Okay.
So he can also, and that was one of the reasons I said he will be a much better person to talk to when it goes into details establishing a study program, because he went through this over the last years in the Turkish environment. And so from my perspective, TU Berlin and some colleagues from TU Berlin could be helpful in setting up what you are looking forward to, and not necessarily TU Berlin as an institution, because establishing a daughter campus in a foreign country, we asked through this with respect to Egypt, and honestly it was pretty complicated.
Why?
And because if you transfer some certain teaching concepts into a different environment, you suddenly realize how much implicit requirements are hidden in this kind of programs. Latest, when you go to bachelor, there are so many prerequisites that we do assume or we take for granted with our students, which simply is not which simply cannot reasonably be expected in other countries. They may be better educated in certain fields, and in other fields they may lack a certain kind of education. So the transfer from high school to bachelor is a pretty tricky one, because for a given country the two systems tend to know each other quite well, and so bridging from one institution to the other is not necessarily straightforward, but there are certain aspects. And if you suddenly try to fit two education systems from different backgrounds, then it becomes a little bit tricky. So, but as I said, in the campus in Egypt was designed in a way that it was essentially applying German educational, even legal systems. Even the building there was built by the German building code. We would never, ever do this again, because it simply does not make any sense. The point is...
Why doesn't it make sense?
Because many of the construction companies in Egypt have no clue what a German building code is. And so if you say we have to make a building due to standard X, standard Y, then a German company or a company which is familiar with German building types simply says, okay, let's do it. And suddenly there people will say, okay, what does it mean? Now it's many things. Building a wall is straightforward, but even if you discuss about the type of lighting, the type of width of doors, you end up with an endless debate about building standards. So the point is, we did this at that time because we said this is a daughter campus of TU Berlin, so our personnel sending there essentially has to be placed in an environment, also physical environment, which adheres to the same rules as this room here or this building.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make any sense. At the very end, it doesn't make any sense, because that suddenly requires so many building norms to be transferred. And at the very end, the building had to be accepted by another German institution. You know the TÜV, where the cars go through. So German TÜV went down there and looked through all the buildings and said, okay, not good. It's a nightmare. Never ever do this again.
But let me say, Turkish construction industry is number 3 in the world. We have do many projects, working with many consultancy companies. I understand.
No, it's not about quality. It's simply about use to certain building standards. standards. And if you run this, if you use an international construction company, life becomes easier because there will be people who have some experience with European or German building standards. But if you work with local companies,
we are not saying we want to work with local.
No.
We are opening to work with international.
No. The point is, but to keep some money in the region is always nice. And
Mr. Professor, let me say this. In the end, it's the AutoCAD drawing.
No, it is not. It's about the experience of the workers. So as I said, we did this in Egypt, and our construction team and department told us we will never ever do this again. There's another reason. We are understaffed anyway. We do have enough problems in running our own buildings and constructing and renovating our own buildings. So there is simply no personal capacity in planning and supervising whatever this is. That has nothing to do with Turkey or with every other country. It's simply we don't have the capacity.
Even in Japan, you will...
Even there. It's simply we have done this. We learned from this, and the main lesson we learned from it, better don't do it. Better don't do it. Okay. So creating, there's one more thing. Creating a daughter campus, which is a different story to having a corporation. A daughter campus, then certain interesting stuff in it. It starts with customs, because in case we send any piece of equipment down there, that was a nightmare in Egypt with respect to customs.
Yes.
No, to clear it out of customs.
Import regulations and
having a very good and close collaboration and advisory role and helpful role, sending teaching personnel, that is a complete different story to setting up a daughter campus.
No, we are not interested in those.
Good. I'm a person who tries to be open about certain things and very clear, because it doesn't make any sense. If I could say, we could look into it. No. A daughter campus would be too complicated for both parties involved. Having a good cooperation, and the same is true for the Turkish-German University in Istanbul we talked about a minute ago. That is a Turkish institution with a strong influx. Embassy is well enough familiar with this, with a strong support and influx of people, of teachers, and there was a lot of support in creating the curriculum for the students, both for the bachelor and master programs. And that is a complete different story. That still is a lot of work, and you still have to be able to attract professors from TU Berlin and maybe other partner universities. The Turkish-German University is operated, I think, by 4 German universities, if I'm right? Yeah.
Maybe Aachen or...
Yeah, but I'm not involved in that one. Jörg Krüger will be able to give you a presentation on that one.
I'm not interested. I would like to make this cooperation with Berlin Technik Üniversitesi.
Okay. No, I just wanted to mention there are certain reasons that this was created on several shoulders, because certain knowledge or certain kind of competences could be brought together in a more efficient way. But that depends on the study programs, and that is something I would recommend strongly to discuss with Jörg Krüger, because he knows more about why the German-Turkish University was created the way it is operated right now. So, next point is one has to look into, are the study programs for free, or do they have the students to pay? If they have to pay a certain amount, I have no clue what the Turkish regulation with respect to students is. Is the university for free, or?
No, it's not free. There's universities, tuition fees goes up to, I think, maximum $9,000 US per medical sciences. This is the
for complete study program.
Yes.
Okay. So there is
per year.
Per year. Yeah. Okay. So there is a certain fee which creates a certain stream of income that makes you more flexible compared with the situation when you have to depend totally on governmental funding, because governmental funding is always a little bit tricky. Don't listen to me. No. If you have no. Yeah, if you have an independent stream of income, it makes life a little bit easier, especially if you are building up certain programs, if you are able, but a combination of both, of a governmental-based funding and then using the tuition, the study fees to do certain additional things, having a good lineup of professors teaching them, especially when this is an English language program. To have an international group of people teaching is very important from my perspective. So, yes, corporations of this kind are interesting, depending on the capacity and the willingness of certain colleagues to get involved. Yeah, and sometimes it's a question of
because we are looking from the same direction.
Yeah.
I mean, postgraduate and master degree, I 100% agree with you. The higher education is different from Turkey and Germany. In England, A-levels, as you know, from the college. You have to get some degree from A-levels in order to go to King's College, for example, in London, and so on. So, in England, as you know, is polytechnic universities. The first year actually is to see in bachelor science. For example, I studied university in bachelor engineering, mechanical engineering in England, in the university, and the second year I changed it to bachelor science, because bachelor engineering in mechanic was become very difficult for me, and then I changed it to bachelor science in computing and electronics, and I graduated after 4 years. It wasn't easy, of course, because the language, even I learned from the language school, even I get degree from IELTS and first certificate, it wasn't enough in the university education. I have many difficulties for myself also. But I understand, I share the same point. The level of the higher education is different, of course, from Germany and Turkey. So that's the main difficulties. If you want to teach with the same contents of German engineering studies in undergraduate bachelor program.
Essentially, what is always recommendable in such kind of a case, to use the first year of bachelor as kind of a
implementation,
yes. leveling field. So then from year 2, the typical curriculum of TU Berlin
exactly.
could be applied, and because in this year before, the preparation of the students, or the transition of students from high school to this university environment can be made smooth and can be kind of supported. It's also it's kind of difficult to do it, but there are certain strategies how to do it.
Okay.
And later on, because typically those students would be good students, because you have a certain selection process, then they will be able to cope with the standard study programs as the ones we are looking into.
And I would like to know, what is the pandemic change in higher education, especially in master degrees, meaning of online education? Of course, you know, in Turkey also this is discussed by authorities that online education is never become same as the face-to-face education. But the world is changing, you know. Digitalization is becoming into education, giving us ability to have this. I can even go to Harvard executive MBA program from where I sit my in office in Turkey, and take some lectures and pass the exams, and I have a degree from Harvard also.
Yeah, but there's a tricky part.
And this is the where university get money actually, you know.
But there's a tricky part. It's one story when a well-trained professional having already a certain degree of self-discipline applies to Harvard to take an MBA course, he or she will be able to go through this because this person already is a matured adult with certain ambitions, certain goals,
Yes.
and certain capabilities, also personal capabilities developed and honed with the years. If you try to run a bachelor program online, I am an absolute non-fan of this. Because, no, let me tell the story slightly differently. What is the essential part of going to a university? The essential part is you develop the ability to survive a week without your parents looking after you. Because you suddenly have your own apartment, or you live in a dormitory, suddenly you have to buy your own food, have to clean your stuff, have to...
Leave yourself.
Yeah, you have to create a life of your own. And that is what happened in part in Germany over the last 2 years as well. Students not even moved to the city where their university was because everything was online. So they stayed with their families and suddenly essentially did the same as they did in school. For their personality development and education, this is a full-scale disaster. Because looking back, some of the closest friends I still do have today, I met in the first semester at university. Because I was away from home, there were other people who were in the same situation. You learned to create your own personal development. Essentially, the first year in university is not so much about passing an exam in basic math or in material science or what. It's developing your personality.
And friendship.
Yeah, and that is part of this.
Exactly.
And that is something which is essentially not possible when people are educated online. So, because a university study is not only about getting good grades and learning all the textbooks and doing the lab courses, it's a personality, personality improvement or development to become an independent person who later on is a valuable member of an industrial personnel, or a leader in an enterprise. Not many people become good enterprise leaders when living at home with their mum forever.
Yes, I know.
or their parents in more general. So
I understand.
So from my point of view, university is very important in terms of personality development. And for this, people have to come together. Look, we could have the same meeting online, for sure. But the interesting aspect is a human being is something in 3D, do interact, and you get the point.
I get the point.
So
I'm 100%
absolutely
agree.
Not a fan.
Okay.
Look, I have been
Done.
teaching courses online over 2 years, and only 1/3 of my students switched on the camera. So I was speaking to lots of gray elements on the screen, which is not very entertaining in the first place. And I only can speak now for myself. I like to interact with people. And if I have a class with 20 people, I do expect them to raise their hands, to throw questions in, to start a discussion about a topic. It's a little bit difficult if you have 800 people in front of you and they want to discuss it all at the same time. There you have to say, folks, but if you go to a master program, interaction with people is so essential. And when someone throws in an idea and the discussion starts, they learn how to fight for their ideas.
Exactly.
And that is what you're looking later on as an
industry.
entrepreneur in terms of employees
Exactly.
who identify themselves with what they are doing. And so from my point of view, a pure online education would miss important parts in creating valuable members for industrial settings. Having said this, that does not mean that there are not certain formats where online could be useful, for sure. But to say we do everything online and that it's the new normal, honestly, I like the old normal.
Old normal, okay.
Perhaps because I'm an old white guy.
No. I am very young, but I am totally 100% with you, because as you mentioned, the personal improvements in the university is the key of higher education, I think.
That's especially true if you talk about science. How many ideas do start because people meet over coffee, over tea, or whatever, and throw in ideas, reflect on them, test them later on. And you can organize lots of things online, but it's a complete different story,
Okay.
period.
Thank you. I am very happy to hear your vision and your ideas about education. We share the same vision. I saw, because I get the same period when I was going to England for university study. My mom said, "Why are you going to England? There's many universities in Turkey. Become next to me, near to me." But my father says no. And after I was a student there, my brothers and sisters, they came. I took them to the university summer language course, and I leave them in the course, and they find their way back to home by themselves. I didn't teach them. I said, you ask this street, the house, the address, you find it yourself. But they don't know English. Hopefully they meet some Turkish people in Oxford, the way to our home in Haddington, and the guy knows me, and he shows me, okay, he's living there. But when you meet difficulties, when you face the difficulties, it's really learning cycle is starting from there. In comfortable areas, we don't learn anything. I put too much weight in the comfort.
I know.
Okay.
So the point, teaching and learning is about being irritated about something.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, what is this about? What do they expect from me? What can I do now? And then you react to this and improve.
Exactly.
And that is what you need as a company owner. You need your people face problems and solve them.
Solve them.
And to develop the capability of doing this together with other with colleagues is something you learn at university by interacting.
Exactly.
Diplomats are trained in classes where you interact with your colleagues and learn in role plays. You learn to do things. It's not in the industry, it's essentially each and every field of life where being around other human beings is, I would say, essential for the development. In most cases, there may be exceptions. I understand this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank also our consulate.
With nothing but, with your permission, you may have a question maybe about
Please
the
do.
project. Or in addition to this meaningful and very straightforward project, what kind of project between the Pamukkale University and with the Berlin Technical University could be conducted in the future, like maybe exchange program, because our Mr. Necip Filiz and some business persons, business people can support the students, so there will be no financial cost for both of the universities could be. But in terms of the exchange programs or such cooperation with Pamukkale University and BTU?
I would say there's a wide set of possibilities. The most simple and in time, because people have a restricted amount of time at hand, going down because it's south, and do some block teaching. Go to Turkey for a week of teaching and offering 20 hours, 30 hours of teaching, or making a certain kind of seminar. doing. So each and every time of a kind of teaching which is easy to be done in a block, because it would be difficult to send someone down to teach weekly 2 hours and then to fly back. It's great for frequent flyer mile accounts, but it's not so efficient in terms of cost. So each and every kind of block teaching situation could be supported by personnel from TU Berlin, for example. Second, one could look into having bachelor or master thesis, for example, performed at TU Berlin, especially in an early phase of such kind of building up a university, offering external means here at TU Berlin, master and bachelor thesis to allow students to learn facilities right now available only here, because building experimental facilities takes time, is costly, and there would be a ramp up at the Turkish location, and so using this interaction in the first years to allow the students to get familiar with modern test fields, with modern kind of experiments, or so whatever a university like TU Berlin could offer could be used to transfer students from your then university to TU Berlin to be as part of an overall education. So there would be students at your university and spend a few months at TU Berlin, especially, as I said, for bachelor and master thesis, because that is the most simple thing to organize. Or to allow them to spend a year here, perhaps even financed by Erasmus programs, yes. Because Turkey has access to Erasmus funding. So that would allow them to, for example, have a semester of learning and then another semester doing the master thesis. Approaches like this could be thought of. So for example, I personally do run a very intensive exchange with a Spanish university, where typically once a year 1 or 2 master students financed by Erasmus do spend 9 months with my group, and some of them ended up as PhD students in my group, and then went back to Spain.
Okay. Which fields?
Energy process engineering. So in the broadest sense, chemical engineering, because what I do essentially is chemical engineering with a strong energy focus. And so looking into using Erasmus funds for allowing a lively exchange of students between the two institutions is a very interesting way, especially because the administrative overhead doing so is limited, because there are certain structures at TU Berlin also for the incomings. So block teaching of university personnel from TU Berlin in Turkey, and using Erasmus funds to bring students for part of their overall program to Berlin. And another topic, but that's for a later phase, yes. Having common research projects in a European Union framing, or by governmental funding of some kind.
There are
yes. Regarding the cooperation, I would like to add something, because I'm also responsible for staff academic exchange.
Okay.
So that would be another point of cooperation, but let me just tell you about the way our cooperation works here at our university, and I think in Germany as well. We follow the bottom-up principle. So if Professor
bottom-up principle.
Bottom-up, which means
principles.
Yes, principles.
Okay.
Yes, because that means that the professors, they have all the power. They decide with whom they cooperate. It's not. It would be possible that our president, that she asked Professor Behrendt,
go there. And then yes. Professor Behrendt may say, no.
Yeah.
Really? As simple as that, huh?
Yeah.
That's simple. So okay, then she will not be in love with me anymore, but that's a different story.
In Turkish situation, a little bit different.
That's why I wanted to to make
I understand. Okay.
information for you here, because before you try to set up cooperation, you need to find professors who are willing to cooperate with each other. So they decide. There's no rule or like a framework from our president or our like the international office. So there has to be a connection. We are happy to help if, to identify someone who could with the similar research interests, but we cannot like ask. We can ask, but not force someone to cooperate. So
what I understand, sorry, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Professor, if he likes to, if he prefers to teach some lessons or make a cooperation with our university, his own decision, is it
Yes.
true?
Correct.
Yes.
So the president cannot say, you cannot go to Turkey?
No.
Okay.
She can neither order nor deny it. There are only very few denial is possible. If I would now decide to teach in Moscow, there would be an interesting debate with my leadership, and so I wouldn't be allowed to do so,
Okay.
due to governmental.
Space to move freely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they can decide how to if they establish the cooperation and also how they fill it, e.g. with blog courses or research.
But there's an important aspect. When people decide to do it, they decide to do it because they want to do it. It's not like three of you down there, and then they come up and do some teaching or hanging out in a coffee house or so. No, those people who decide to come do this because they like the idea.
Willing to do this?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I understand.
Then there's a
Which gives more
It is much
flexibility.
better.
Yeah.
So we don't need to get in touch with President anymore of this TU. We are very happy with talking to him, okay.
let's say having a kind of an institutional framework, a memorandum of understanding, something is always helpful. But really to get people involved, those people have to be convinced that it is a good idea to do this. Maybe there's a nice beach nearby, maybe you get the point.
I get it.
There are motivational aspects.
You will be
In a broader
very happy
sense.
to be in Turkey. Trust me.
It's a great pleasure for us to
Yes.
meet you today, and as a bureaucratic part, we are always ready to establish this connection between the Denizli University and Denizli Police, and for further cooperations and other projects. And as Turkish Embassy, we are always ready to get in touch with you. And these are my conclusion remarks. And I'm leading the floor to you, Mr. Police, and you, Mr. Vera. Thank you very much.
And I would also like to invite you and some other professor you might take with you to see us in Turkey, to see our constitution, to take a time little bit in Turkey, see nice places. Please feel free to be our guest anytime you want.
Yeah.
Just let us know the dates.
Yes,
Okay.
sometimes some suggestion from your side would be helpful, because especially when we try to get a certain core group of people involved in such kind of an endeavor, it's always important to understand the other side a little bit better, to talk to industrial representatives, or talk to the kind of a local or regional government is also important. But that is definitely the next step. I would say the next meeting starts in 10 minutes.
11:30.
Okay, that's fine. That will work out. So talking to my colleague Jörg Krüger, because he has lots of experience in this interaction, would be very helpful, and I will be happy to be available for additional discussions of any
Thank you
kind.
very much. It's so kind of you. It's my pleasure to see, to have this such conversation with you. It's my pleasure. It's my second offer. I would like to love to see you and welcome you in Turkey, in our constitution, to see also in our local Pamukkale University to visit and to see the collaboration. What can we do about this further strategic collaboration? For us, you asked this Erasmus program is a second step. The first step is to establish the university, strategic planning and everything with the system of TU as an example. Building ourselves 100%. No worries. Okay.
And I would say the international office is also a very good point of contact because there are lots of information about our international programs are available, so they can go to a shelf electronically or physically and take out certain things and supply you with information.
Very good.
And
that will be enough. That will be
We can
enough.
also help with identifying professors for possible cooperation.
That's a good part.
Similar research interests. Or maybe we have a lot of cooperation with Turkish universities already, so maybe we can build a connection there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay.
Thanks for coming by.
Okay.
So that's my
Professor Frank
Yeah.
Behrendt. Okay,
Do you
Behrendt.
have my contact?
Thank you so much. Faculty of Processing Sciences, stuff, Energy Engineering.
So that's my science head. Gene and the other stuff is
Now
different
is
kind.
solar power, every energy aspects is very interesting in Turkey at the moment.
The critical part is energy system, bringing it together.
Exactly.
Now, it's not about I have a hammer and now everything looks like a nail, but it's like, it's a little bit.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting. Bugün biz Berlin Teknik Üniversitesi'nde Sayın Profesör Frank Bendt'le birlikteydik. Kendisi bize Uluslararası İlişkiler Bölümü olarak Türkiye ile Berlin Teknik Üniversitesi'nin arasında nasıl bir collaboration, ilişki olabilir bunu açıkladı. Kendisine çok teşekkür ediyorum. Burada gerçekten çok şey öğrenmiş olduk. Yani bizim düşündüğümüz, kurmayı planladığımız teknik üniversite Denizli'deki buradaki sistemle yaptığımızda tabii buradaki lisede alınan eğitim düzeyiyle üniversiteye geçiş arasındaki farklılık Türkiye'de olacaktır dedi. Bunu yaptıkları Mısır'daki Berlin Teknik Üniversitesi'nin daughter university dedikleri işte eş üniversitelerinde yaşadıkları tecrübeleri bizle paylaştı. Orada mesela binayı yaparken karşılaştıkları birçok zorluktan bahsetti. Çünkü iki ülkenin farklı regülasyonları olduğu için inşaat anlamında bunu tekrar tercih etmeyeceklerini ama bize üniversitenin kurulması aşamasında ve profesörlerin karşılıklı işbirliğiyle ders vermesi konusunda yardımcı olacaklarını ifade etti. Bugün bu görüşmemizde Berlin Büyükelçiliğimizden Levent Bey de vardı. O da süreci bu şekilde oluşturdu. Kendilerine çok teşekkür ediyoruz Sayın Büyükelçimize ve ekibine. Ve Berlin Teknik Üniversitesi'ndeki bu görüşmeyle inşallah bugün bu olumlu sonuçlanan görüşmenin sonrasında bir adım daha atarak biz de onları Türkiye'ye davet ettik. Dedik ki bizi gelip hem organize sanayi bölgemizi görün, hem Pamukkale Üniversitemizle de tanışma fırsatı bulun. Onlar da bu teklifimize sıcak baktılar. Ben o yüzden bugün çok verimli bir görüşme olduğunu düşünüyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum. I explain in Turkish, we are very happy to be here and we are thinking and looking the higher education in same direction. And we have get knowledge about your Egypt operation, and we talk about possibility of collaboration. We talk about difficulties between difference of higher education in Turkey and Germany by meaning of accepting to bachelor program. We talk about bachelor degree and master degree programs. And they would like to hear your final words to our people watching in Turkey. Please.
There's a long international cooperation between the two of our countries, between Turkey and Germany. And for sure there are lots of similarities in the industrial setting, also lots of similarities in the education system. So it's always interesting to look into possibilities of establishing new kind of collaborative educating endeavors like the university we are looking into here. And I do look forward very positively to our future interaction and to our future discussions about what we can achieve together.
Thank you.